After a successful stint with the World Boxing Hall of Fame, two men began their journey into the business of boxing. Alex Camponovo, the young, aspiring matchmaker, and the head of Thompson Building Materials, Ken Thompson, began their quest to bring Southern California fight fans not only good fights, but to build tomorrow's champions. By May of 2000, they had done their first card, and off and running was Thompson Boxing. Running the day-to-day operations of Thompson Boxing is Alex Camponovo, who not only serves as their general manager, but their matchmaker. From day one, he has worked to construct this company into what it is today. You know, I've said this when I was writing for other publications, that Thompson Boxing has the best club program in America. And I don't say that as a pejorative. You guys are a club show, but you develop world-class fighters. Going down the list, the first name I think of is Tim Bradley. Is that right now, and obviously Danny Roman's having a great career, as of right now, is that the hallmark achievement, what you were able to do with the Desert Storm?
It's a huge part of who we are, without a doubt. I got a phone call from his father one day before we turned him pro. We had already signed Josecito Lopez. I had a good conversation with Big Ray. He explained everything to me about his amateur career. I knew a little bit about him from the amateurs. We met, and we clicked immediately. But yeah, it was a hallmark moment for us to get him to a world title in Nottingham, England, and see that everything that we worked so hard for, had that crowning moment.
Chris Arreola passed through these doors. Danny Roman, Josecito Lopez. Now you have Michael Dutchover, Ruben Villa, Ruben Torres. How do you find these guys? And what is the process? Do they come up to you, or do you just sometimes get lucky?
We do get lucky, but a lot of it has to do with the more you try things, the better off you get. The more we went to the well to try to figure out how we're going to do business with this manager or that manager, we started learning the personalities of different people, understanding that we had the same philosophy in how we work. Eddie Gonzalez is a great example. He's brought us basically all his fighters. We've been able to feature all of them. Danny Zamora is the same thing. He started training Yanni Perez. We made him a world champion, and moving forward, he trained Darley Perez. He trained Momo Romero, who was another world champion of ours. And now with the younger generation, with Ruben Torres, Michael Dutchover. So I think it had a lot to do in getting to know the important people that are attached to those fighters.
So obviously relationships are important, matchmaking is important, and I think Danny Roman's been a fascinating case study, because here's a kid that lost twice. In fact, early on in his career, eventually you resuscitated that relationship, and it turned out at the end he was a finished product going into the Adam Lopez fight and a great championship run. That has to be another hallmark achievement for Thompson Boxing. I know this one right there. Is it even more special than the Tim Bradley run?
It actually proved the point. It proved the point that when we were able to get Timothy Bradley to a world title fight and actually win a title, and then he was the WBC and WBO champion when he fought Kendall Holt, it proved the point that we could do this on our own. Because Danny, we were very fortunate in the very beginning. We had a partnership with Gary Shaw, a great friend of ours, that gave us the ability to put Timothy Bradley on Showbox and then Showtime and then move on to HBO. We had the ability to do the same thing with Yanni Perez. He was a Showtime fighter. We had a great relationship, we still do, with Banner Promotion. They helped us with ESPN and all the other opportunities we had. But on Danny, it was a little bit different. I have to give credit to him for sticking with us, to understanding what we were trying to do, and also his manager, who one day, we had a long conversation on the phone, and he goes, I don't remember exactly who he had fought, but he goes, we're ready for the next level. When are we going to go to the next level? And I said, okay, Eddie, we're going to go on a strict diet of tough guys, because we got to get him at the time it was the NABA title for the WBA, but it's not going to be easy. We're going to have to find the tough challenges to get him to where we want to go. And he says, he's ready. We're going to get him ready. I'm going to get him ready. And to Danny's credit, to Eddie's credit, they were never wrong. And I always say the same thing. The crowning moment when he got the world title in Japan against Shun Kubo, it's not that I knew he was going to win. I didn't know he was going to win in such a way, in such a fashion. He has been one of the most dominating super bantamweights in the world, without a doubt.
Boxing is oftentimes the most unforgiving of sports and the most individual of pursuits, but oftentimes it is a team effort to get fighters to the world-class level. And for Roman, it was his trainer-manager, Eddie Gonzalez, who has been there every step of the way. You're one of those guys, anytime they have a card, you're at least in one or two of those corners. You've been there for years. You said this earlier. They don't give you the Gerbers. They don't baby you. They're not spoon-feeding you. Do you prefer it that way?
I definitely do. I think just like they do, babying a fighter, taking them to Mexico to fight these kids that can't even fight and build up their records. Your fighter's not going to learn anything. The only way is doing it the old-fashioned way, putting them in there against tough opposition.
There has to be then a shared philosophy then, that in a sense that if you're going to sign a young fighter, you have to let the fighter know that, hey, I'm not giving you 20 gimmies or layups. And then the promoter and the matchmaker have to say, hey, we're going to do it a certain way. Then you as a manager, you have to have faith in the fighter and then also those handling your career. This all works together, does it not?
Absolutely. I 100%. Look, I've been working with Thompson Boxing for the last 13, 14 years. And I bring all my fighters to them. And I try to bring them the best product possible. And the ones that I do believe that can make it, and I don't see that they are putting up what they're supposed to put up, I just don't bring them back.
The latest standout developed under the guidance of Thompson Boxing is Danny Roman, who after some early losses was eventually developed into a unified world champion at junior featherweight. He is a shining example of the successful developmental system created by Alex Camponovo and Ken Thompson. Had a great run from 2017 to 2019. Just off the top of my head, you went to Japan twice, you fought in Chicago, I believe you fought in Frisco, had a homecoming fight in LA, and you fought in the Windy City of Chicago. That was a magical run. What was that like?
Well, it was going so fast. I enjoyed it. I got a great team, Thompson Boxing, Team Roman, a great manager. Like, they guide me the right way, and it was beautiful. I kept on winning, kept on building myself even more as a champion.
Danny, you are an LA guy, and I was there. What I thought was a really good show put on by Matchroom Sports. Thompson Boxing was involved. Unification bout against T.J. Doheny. Growing up, did you ever think you would be headlining at the Forum?
Growing up, I always used to pass by the Forum, and I'll say, you know what, it'll be good if I end up fighting someday here. And I had forgot about it. So that night, my friends came over. They said, like, you know what, your dream came true. You're finally gonna fight home. So I was excited. I was emotional that I was being back home, even as a great fight, a unification bout, the important fight of my career after winning the world title, unifying against T.J. Doheny, the IBF champion, and thank God everything went great, and we brought the victory home.
For decades, Ken Thompson ran Thompson Building Materials with great success. But soon, at the turn of the century, he got the itch and turned his passion for boxing into a business. 20 years you've been in this boxing racket. Do you ever think you'd be in it this long?
20 fabulous years, to be honest with you. Well, yes, I did. We never quit when we get into something, and we love it. Not only is it a business, but it's a passion. You live boxing, and we do that, and the people around us are the same. Every person in boxing, no matter where you go in the world, are exactly the same. No matter what country, no matter what religion or whatever it is. When it comes to boxing, they all talk the same language.
There's an old joke in the boxing business. How do you make $10 million in boxing? Start off with $100 million. So what was your expectations getting in? Because you're a highly successful businessman. You don't actually need to do this. So as you get into it, you get your license, you're doing all the paperwork, you're doing all the logistics. What did you think you were getting into?
You know, you're really not sure. You know, actually, when you love boxing, you're getting into something you really want to be involved in. And then as you grow into it, you realize it's not just events that you're trying to put on. Then you start meeting the boxers. You want to be involved with them. You want to start promoting them. And before it's all over, it's like it's part of your family. So to be honest with you, it's not something you just go into with expectations. You go in with really no expectation and wind up wherever you wind up. But we've been very, very fortunate with having lots of fabulous people in the game with us. We've been working with the same people for over 20 years and beyond that, because at the beginning we were with the World Boxing Hall of Fame. I was president, Alex Camponovo was managing director. So because of that, we had several years of dealing with all of the people in boxing, from managers, promoters, champions from all over the world. So you become familiar with everything and the way they think. And you realize that, you know, it's a little different group. They're great people. Some of the finest people I've ever met in my life are in boxing.
So Ken, obviously your venture into this, which has become much more than just a hobby, was rooted in your interest in the sport. When was the final decision made where you said, okay, let's become promoters?
Well, like I mentioned, we were with the World Boxing Hall of Fame, and it's a non-profit organization. I didn't really realize that until I became president.
And you're not a non-profit guy. Let's make that clear.
That's right. So we had to figure out some way to feed it, to capitalize it, get a money stream coming in.
You talked about nurturing a fighter and bringing them up, but that when you sign a young fighter, young fledgling teenager, 0-0, about to make their pro debut, you really do kind of think of them like, hey, you're joining our family, and talk about the satisfaction you get. And let's say a young man like Tim Bradley, who you went from 0-0 all the way up to making millions of dollars on pay-per-view. It's funny because you're in the building business. Right. There is a construction of a fighter that is quite satisfying.
Right, exactly. In other words, when we met Tim Bradley, he came in, we turned him professional. He had a high character, and he was an intelligent young guy. His family was working with him, and that made it easy. He had Joel Diaz as his trainer, who worked hand in glove with him. And he listened, and he paid attention. So it was not like a stranger coming in with a bunch of guys. It was somebody coming in with a family unit with them. And so it made it easy. And as you went along, you realized his character was really good. I mean, this was a young man that could be in any type business and go to the top. And he did that.
Mr. Thompson, I've always noticed this about you. I don't know how old you are, but you have a young spirit. And there's this philosophy that if you will always be alive, if you're always working, that retirement has killed more people than work. I want to ask you, is that true?
That's absolutely true. That's the last thing you ever want to do, is retire. That's committing suicide is what it is. You quit something you liked doing to do something that you don't like to do, which is nothing. So why would you ever quit?
The hardest working man in boxing and the happiest man in boxing, Mr. Thompson. Here's to many more years.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
2020 marked the 20th year of operations for Thompson Boxing. What was supposed to be a celebratory campaign instead was one that was bogged down by the worldwide pandemic. Yet despite the hardships and inconveniences, eventually the company resumed operations with the 3-2-1 concept, a fast-paced, truncated version of their usual show designed to get their fighters back to work. It was a testament to the consistency and steadfast nature of the company and those who work for it.